You have to stop believing in your thoughts if you actually want to heal and change and achieve all the things that you want to achieve. And today I'm going to do something different. I'm going to draw the mind and how it works, show you what your current problems probably are if you are anything like myself and my students. And then I'm going to show you exactly what happens with your thoughts and your emotions and the beliefs that are created through them and what to do about it. I'm Stephanie and I'm a mind training coach, and today I will draw stick figures and write a bunch of words on this whiteboard so that you can hopefully start feeling better straight away. So here you are, needing help, and that is where we all start. We have a problem and then we start looking for answers. So let's go through some of the most common problems that my students face and that I struggled with for so many years. First of all, there's your own body and mind. Maybe you are in pain, maybe you experience some sort of disease. It might be mental, which is usually anxiety or depression, and there's a whole lot of symptoms. Usually people don't just experience one symptom, but they pile up over time. And all of these make you feel stuck and scared. That would be reasonable given those symptoms. The next thing is relationships. A relationship with your partner, a family member, a child, colleague, boss, whatever that relationship is, it's likely that it's the same argument that keeps reappearing and you get nowhere. So maybe your partner doesn't fill the dishwasher in the right way, which obviously is your way, or maybe your child is sick and you don't know how to help him or her, or maybe it's your boss who doesn't treat you well. So naturally, you would feel constant anger and frustration, maybe even fear. The problem is there in your face all the time and nothing seems to be working. Next problem, the world. Okay, this includes politics, global warming, war, immigration. And all of these things naturally leave you feeling powerless. How do you deal with these problems that you have no control over, and yet they are right there on the news, all over your environment, and you can't do anything about it? Next thing, purpose. Maybe you have achieved certain things in life, a lot of money, some sort of status, and you still feel rootless and dissatisfied, despite all your effort. It's kind of a Groundhog Day, this meh feeling that never leads to any kind of satisfaction. So you might be stuck with depression, you don't take action, and you try different things to escape your mind or your life. Next up, finances. There's too little and you want more, which leads you to feel constant scarcity. Now, this is a mentality. It's not necessarily the case, but if you operate from a scarcity mentality, then you will see it everywhere. And finally, let's address the pink elephant in the room. Addiction. I'm not talking about just an addiction to food, gaming, alcohol, Netflix, scrolling, drugs, whatever the so-called typical addictions are. I'm mainly talking about an addiction to your thoughts, and especially the negative ones. This is the problem. All of these other things are problematic too, but in this video, I want to address this particular problem because if you solve the problem where it actually is, then you will get better results, great results even, because you're hitting the nail on its head. So let's continue. Okay, in this segment, I'm going to show you exactly how your thoughts sound and work. And The transformation starts to happen with my students when I break things down in detail so that you really see why I keep talking about your thoughts. It's not a coincidence that I spend 95% of my time talking about thoughts. So I've chosen two of the problematic areas from the last drawing I made, because these two tend to be the most common ones that people are working on. You think between 40 and 100,000 thoughts every single day. Those thoughts are like pieces of code, and whatever you think about will appear in your reality in one way or another. Currently, as you have a problem with your body or your mind, you keep thinking thoughts like, this pain will never go away, or the doctor told me to live with it. There's no cure for this thing. Nobody has ever healed from this disease. This is just how things are. Or maybe you have a food intolerance, which leads you to think, I react to everything I eat. Now, you might tell me, yes, Stephanie, but that's how it is. I get that. That's what tends to happen. But you gotta look at the code. If you spend your day thinking, I react to everything I eat, and you agree with me that your thoughts create your reality, then what is the probable result of these kinds of thoughts? Well, more reactions, right? That is the only logical effect that you're causing through your mind. Let's look at some more thoughts. I want to escape my mind. I'm anxious. I hate the way I feel. You're willing to do pretty much anything to get out of your own mind. That was me. I was suicidal for a while, and I seriously sat around thinking that it would be better if I wasn't here. That's very common. You have no idea how many of my students and clients are so ashamed and so afraid of saying it out loud that they have suicidal thoughts. Most people have at some point. So there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that you believe in those thoughts, and then it gets really tricky to live with yourself, because if the thoughts tell you that you suck and you believe it, then what the hell are you going to do next? Obviously, you're going to start contemplating the fact that it would be better if you weren't here. But that's a problem on the level of the mind. That's where it's so important to understand that you are not your thoughts, and that you can change them, and that you can choose them. Let's continue. Nothing is changing. I'm getting worse. Well, if that's what you're thinking all day long, do you think that you're going to get better if you keep thinking that you're going to get worse, and if your thoughts create your reality? That doesn't make any sense. You have to change the code. Life is so unfair. If that's what you keep thinking, do you think it's going to get fairer? Probably not. You got to change the code. I'm so ugly. If you keep thinking that, just imagine what that is going to do to your behavior and the way you show up in this world. You cannot expect to get all the wonderful things you want in your life if this is what you walk around thinking all day long. And there are so many people who are completely unaware of what they are thinking about. And then they are completely surprised by what happens as they are thinking those thoughts and as they keep getting more evidence of exactly that thought. Let's move on to your relationships. You have a certain relationship in your life that isn't working, or maybe quite a few, and you've tried to change these people, told them to do things differently or say things differently, and yet they keep behaving exactly in the same way. So what do you do about that? Well, you'll look at the code. You keep thinking, I'm so afraid what will happen to my child. What if they never heal? What if they have to have the surgery and I don't want that? What if? If this is how you think, then you will spend 100% of your day in deep fear, thinking about the worst case scenarios that could happen to your child, and nothing can change. You're keeping yourself in a deadlock situation. Or another version of it. What if they never get a job or go to college or move out? What if this happens? What if that doesn't happen? What if? You're so stuck in all the negative possibilities that you can't even think straight. Maybe it's a spouse that is the problem, and you keep thinking, my husband doesn't listen to me. What does that feel like? Well, obviously like crap. If you think that he doesn't listen to you, then you're gonna feel lonely and misunderstood the whole day. Or I turn into a doormat when I'm with my sister, or with my dad, or mom, or brother. You have these relationships that have stayed exactly the same since you were 5 or 10 years old, and you're still thinking about the same problems and thinking about the same family constellations, wondering what to do about them because you can't seem to change them. Let me show you how you start creating that change on a fundamental level, which is the only place where you will actually cause a different effect than before. This is where it gets really interesting, because if you actually want to change and heal and create lasting change, then you really have to understand what I'm about to tell you, because otherwise you're gonna keep doing it wrong and you're gonna try to do it the wrong way around. So I just showed you what kinds of thoughts you think when you have a certain disease, or you have anxiety, or you have a problematic relationship with somebody. Those are thoughts. And some people tell me, yes, but that's just me describing the problem. But those are still your thoughts. That is what you keep thinking about all day long. And if your thoughts create your reality, then it would make sense to change those thoughts. So up here, you have those thoughts, the 40 to 100,000 thoughts that turn into reality. And that's the code. Okay, all of those thoughts eventually have an impact on your life. And most people who try to change their lives and heal their bodies are stuck in very, very negative emotions, thinking this is not working, I don't know what to do, I feel so scared, what if I run out of money, what if I can't take care of myself, this has been going on for a decade, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Those are the thoughts that you keep thinking. And so obviously, you're gonna feel like crap. You're gonna be so afraid, so ashamed that you can't seem to figure it out. I should have done it by now. I'm smart. I've read all the books. I went to the seminars. I've meditated like a maniac for the last decade, and yet I feel like shit. Okay, so what does that tell you? You have been trying to change your emotions. You've been told that it would be beneficial to feel elevated emotions. Let's feel the joy. Let's feel the inspiration. Let's just feel all the love coursing through our bodies. Well, let me ask you, how is that working out for you? Do you feel all lovey-dovey when you wake up in the morning and you check your body for all the same symptoms? The headache is there, the painful hip is still there, your husband is still not listening to you. So obviously, you're gonna feel the same way if you try to change the emotions. You cannot tell yourself to be happy and then feel happy. It does not work like that. The name of the game is to start here. All of your power lies in your thoughts. Let me write that down. All of your power is connected to your thoughts. If you want to heal and change, you start here. This is what you want to pay attention to. What am I thinking about all day long? And when you start noticing that, you will notice that whatever you're thinking about will create emotions that are in perfect alignment with those thoughts. In fact, this system is so perfect because it works like a charm. Whatever the code is that you keep putting into the computer, then that's what will create and write the program. You cannot get away from that. Okay, so you think 40 to 100,000 mostly shitty thoughts throughout your day. Those create mostly negative emotions, matching the thoughts, the negative thoughts you're thinking. Then you are stuck in low negative emotions all day long. And what do you think that those emotions will create more of? The same negative emotions will turn into the same negative thoughts. And here you have the vicious cycle that goes on and on and on for decades or even a lifetime, unless you start going about this the right way, which is exactly what I've drawn right here in front of you. I talk about thoughts 95% of the time when I teach, because it is the only thing that you can change every moment of the day. Isn't that wonderful? The fact that there is something that you can do every step of the way, every second of your day, that will actually change the program in your mind. This is how you reprogram your mind. This is how you start healing. This is how you change. This is how you become someone new. This is how you get the girl, get the boy. This is how your child heals. This is how you can eat all the cookies or the hamburger or drink all the wine. This is how your bones heal. This is how your hair grows back. This is literally the answer to everything. No, it's not a quick fix. I don't promise anyone anything, because I can only show you how your mind works, and then you have to practice using your own mind. But what I can tell you is that I have seen the most miraculous healings and examples of radical change just by people sticking to this simple idea and this formula. And if you want a free mind training guide with 85 pages that show you exactly how this works and what kinds of results that you can expect from learning how to train your mind, then simply comment mind down below this video and I'll send you the link. I would love to show you exactly how it works. So just comment mind below and I'll send you a link. This is where it gets really juicy. Okay, let me explain to you the emotional scale, which is what I call it. It is my own take on how emotions work, and this is yet another attempt to simplify things to the point where you can't argue against me. Well, it's not really you who's arguing against me, it's your mind. And part of it will come up with all sorts of excuses that are keeping you stuck. Let me draw you an emotional scale. This is it. You only need to understand a few things. This point here is the switch between positive and negative emotion. Let's say that this has an energetic value of 200. It was actually Dr. David Hawkins who introduced the scale of emotions, as he called it, and he gave the emotions an energetic value. I really don't care about the values as such. The numbers don't matter. We could give this scale any number. It could be a scale between 1 and 10 equally. Forget about the number and listen to what I have to say. This is the switch between positive and negative emotion. And here's what you need to know. Below 200, you have negative emotions. And when you feel negative emotions, you are going to be low. You're going to feel negative. That makes perfect sense. Okay, equally, when you're above the 200 mark, you are going to feel positive emotions. This is me explaining it to a 5-year-old. And when you feel positive emotions, you're going to be high on life. You understand that. And the higher up you climb on the emotional scale, the better you feel, until you get to all the wonderful highest emotions, love, inspiration, passion, where you are just high as a kite. That's what we are all aiming for, but that's not quite the reality where you are right now, if that's you. Maybe you feel great, then go do something else. You don't need me. But if you are hanging out on this lower spectrum of the scale, then you might want to stick around and hear me out. To review what we've already talked about, you think between 40,000 to 100,000 thoughts every single day. Most of them, 95%, are exactly the same as yesterday. And 95% of them are negative. So if that's how you feel, if you are marinating in negative emotions all day long, what do you think will happen tomorrow? Obviously, you're going to stay in the same negative emotions, because when you're down here, you don't have any energy. You think shitty thoughts about your shitty life and about how shitty tomorrow is going to be too, and you don't take action. So the trick is to gently guide yourself up on this scale toward the 200 mark, the switch between negative and positive emotion, so that you can start feeling better. Now you ask me, okay, how do I do that? That sounds kind of cool. And the way to do that is very simple. Through your thoughts. And you say, well, it's not that simple. And I say, yes, it is. You just haven't learned how to do that. If you were to spend more time thinking about what you are thinking about, then you would understand everything that is happening in your life right now. And when you pay attention to your thoughts more, just a little bit more than before, then all of this, the drama happening in your life, will start to make more sense. And most importantly, you will start to see positive effects of you using your mind differently. That's what I want for you. I don't want you just to hang around this 200 mark. I would want you to be here. Of course, this is where the good things happen, when you heal, when you thrive, when you feel all the love. But that takes training. You have to learn how to get there. And you don't really have to do much about it. You have to learn how to think differently. And you do so when you stop believing in every thought you think. Okay, this is where shit gets real. And I'm going to show you why. You think 40 to 100,000 thoughts every single day. And those thoughts are equal to code. That is the code that you are inserting into your mind. And those thoughts turn into beliefs. What is the belief in the mind? Well, obviously, it's the program. So all those thoughts turn into the program that is inside your mind. And over time, you start seeing the effects of that. So let's make it super practical. You think thoughts like, the pain is never going away. What does that turn into? A belief in pain, a belief in a difficult life where that pain dictates exactly what you can and can't do. I'm not saying that your pain isn't real, because pain is very real, but what I am saying is that you focus primarily on your pain when you feel it, and that is a problem of focusing on what you don't want instead of focusing on the only thing that you can change, which is the thought. Next one. I have a reaction to everything I eat. What kinds of beliefs does that create? Well, obviously, a belief in an intolerance, allergies. I can't ... I react all the time. Again, I know that the reaction is there. I was allergic to everything on this planet. And then I started to watch my mind like a hawk. And I noticed that I spent my entire day thinking about everything that I could not eat or that I would have a reaction to. And as I did that and changed the thought, then the belief changed, which then changed my experience. Next one. My husband or wife doesn't listen to me. If that's what you think every time you're around them, then surely that leads to some belief that you are lonely, alone, not loved, that you're with the wrong person, that he or she doesn't see you or understand you. And if that is your belief, then you will see evidence of it everywhere in your life, not just with your husband or your wife, but everywhere else too, because it is your belief that actually determines what you see, not just your thoughts. Thoughts turn into beliefs over time. It's not enough to think one thought to create one belief. You think thousands of thoughts, similar thoughts, that then turn into a belief over time. But since you've been thinking the same shitty thoughts for decades, then you have to start somewhere. And when you start to make lists of all the things that aren't working right now, then that's when you actually see why they aren't working. And I have an entire module about this in my foundational mind training course, because when you actually understand what your beliefs do and how they shape everything you see, then you will want to pay attention to them much more than you've done before. But it takes willingness. Nobody else can do it for you. And so you have to decide that you actually want to change on a very fundamental level before that can happen. The good news is that you don't have to involve your husband or your wife or your child. I have students who have seen their children heal in front of them without the child doing anything, because my students changed their minds and they understood that it starts with them. That change has to start with you. There's no point in trying to get anyone else to change before you do the work. So here you are with a better hair day, and you have all the beliefs that you have collected over decades. So what might those beliefs be? Gluten makes me bloated. I'm in constant pain because the doctors told me it's the way it is. Nothing to be done. You already took all the pain meds, the painkillers. Nothing is changing, so live with it. That's just how you think it is. That is a belief. Or I never have enough time. Or I'm not worthy of being loved. Or I'm really slow. Or I'm terrible with technology. All these are thoughts that have turned into beliefs, and then they turn into a reality. You tell me, yes, Stephanie, but I am bad with tech. Well, have you practiced? Have you looked at what it says on the screen and done that thing? Or do you sit staring at it, hoping that something would change without you actually touching anything or learning anything? Go on YouTube and watch a video about how to do that thing you're trying to do online, and I'm sure you'll figure it out, but not as long as you keep thinking that you are terrible with tech. So you have hundreds, thousands of beliefs that are just sitting there, and you create more beliefs every time you think a thought, because those thoughts turn into beliefs over time. So all you're doing all day long is collecting evidence for the beliefs that you have. What would be the probable, logical effect caused by you thinking the same thoughts all day long? Naturally, more beliefs that are in perfect alignment with the ones that you already have. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I react to everything. I'm always in pain. There's nothing that can be done. I don't have enough time. I'm running out of time. I'm always late. I'm not worthy of love. I hate the dating apps. I don't know where to go. Why is nothing changing? I'm so slow. I'm so stupid. I never know what to do. I never know what to say. People think I'm weird. Blah, 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 blah. Friends, those are beliefs. It has nothing to do with you. And you can change that belief if you change the thoughts. So you have to start with your thoughts if you want to create any change. It's as simple as that. The $1 million question. Do you know what it is? Let me show you. How do you actually change your life and heal? How do you do it? Everyone I have ever met who has worked with me has asked me this question. And it's very simple, but not entirely easy until you understand what you have been doing before and what you need to change and start doing differently so that you can get a different outcome. Let me just say this much before we go on. You cannot keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That is the definition of insanity. You gotta do something differently, and you gotta think differently if you actually want to become someone new, and you do so when you stop believing in your thoughts. Which brings me to my favorite subject: red thoughts versus green thoughts. Okay, let's dig deeper. Red thoughts are negative, green thoughts are positive. Easy, right? The problem is that if you want to change your life and heal, then you have to change your thoughts. And right now, you're predominantly thinking negative, red thoughts, such as, the pain is getting worse. I don't know what to do anymore. I can't take this any longer. That's how it feels. It's awful. It's hard. You've been there for so long. Nothing seems to change. I get it, fully. But if your thoughts create your reality, then you have to start changing the code that is creating your reality. So what else could you think as you're sitting there in pain, thinking about things getting worse? You could think, my thoughts matter. Can I learn how to make myself feel better by changing my thoughts? Oh yes, you can. And wouldn't you be a clever one who sat around thinking that instead of the garbage that is currently dominating your mind? Another one: the doctors told me that nothing can be done. What would be a better thought? I've seen other people heal from X disease, and so could I. That feels a lot better than there's nothing that can be done and I'm doomed for life. Or gluten gives me stomach pain. Right now, you think it might be doing exactly that. Okay, what if instead you thought, what can appear can also disappear? Isn't that a cool thought? Isn't it nicer to think logically that whatever appears can disappear? Why do you accept a shitty idea such as, if I get sick, I'm going to be sick for my whole life? Why couldn't you get well? At least that's how I choose to think. And when I choose to think in that way, then I am changing the code in my mind, and therefore I get results of exactly that. And it takes a while to change this landscape, because if you are here all day long, which most people are, then you're going to just see more of that. It's the only logical effect that you are causing through your mind. And that's why the community that I have built inside Helpings is so important, because you need to see other people changing their minds, changing their thoughts, and then also see what that leads to. People are starting to heal themselves as they realize what they have been doing. There's no magic to that. It's actually really logical. If you think negative thoughts, then you're going to have a negative experience. If you think positive thoughts, then you're going to have a positive experience. It's like the most basic law there is, and yet people think it's naive to think like that. Well, do you want to be sick, stuck, and alone? Or do you want to be happy, joyful, and whole? Wouldn't that be like the better option, since you can choose? At least that's what I would choose. So another very common question that I get is, how do you heal the unconscious, subconscious mind? Essentially, they are the same thing. You can absolutely heal the subconscious mind, but you have to start where you are. And if you've never worked with your mind, and if you've never actually become aware what it's doing all day long, then it's going to take a bit of time to get to the unconscious. And you do that through the conscious mind. I'm sure that you've seen this drawing before, where there's the tip of the iceberg. It's the 5% of your awareness that is conscious. This is the only power you have, what you have to work with, your thoughts and your emotions. So if you want to get to the unconscious mind, then this is where you have to start. There's no other way around it. You cannot fake it till you make it when it comes to your mind, because your mind knows. You also know that the 95% that is below the surface is unconscious. What is stored beneath the surface? Obviously, all your beliefs. You don't know what beliefs you hold right now, and I'm guessing you haven't thought about it much either. And those beliefs rule your world. It doesn't matter what you do, because until you become aware of what they are and you change the code, which is the thoughts, that is the code that you can do something about, then you're going to stay exactly where you are. This is where your power is, this 5%. And most people aren't willing to do that work. They want to get to the big stuff, the interesting part. I'm going to be honest. This part is boring, but that's also the part that I spent 7 years working on, observing my mind until it became crystal clear to me. I was so painfully aware of what my mind was doing. And when you get to that level of awareness, then it makes sense. And that's a beautiful thing. So eventually, as you work on your thoughts and your emotions, you will become aware not only of what those beliefs are, but also how to change them. That's the whole purpose of mind training. And that's what I teach my students every single day inside my foundational mind training course. But this is where you're going to be working for a while. And when you work there, you take your power back. You stop being so confused and afraid and frustrated with your life because all of this is ruling your world and shit happens that you don't like and you don't understand why. But when you pay attention to your thoughts and your emotions, the conscious ones that you feel and that you actually hear yourself thinking, then that has a ripple effect. And everything starts to change slowly but surely. And it is so satisfying to see that actually happen in real time. And if you want to get a mind training guide with 85 pages showing you exactly how it works and what results you can expect, then all you have to do is comment mind and I'll send you a guide. Just comment mind below in the comments and I'll send you the link to my free mind training guide. Finally, I have one really important question for you. Since your thoughts write the code in your mind, which ultimately determines your life experience, then wouldn't it make sense to do everything in your power to change those predominantly negative thoughts? People always ask me, what am I missing? I'm sure you've asked that question quite a few times. What you are missing is the awareness of your thoughts and what you are doing with your mind throughout the day, from the moment you wake up till the moment you go to bed. That is what you are missing. It's 16 hours of time that you can spend changing your mind so that you get the results that you actually want. And unless you spend these 16 hours in a better way than before, or in a different way than before, then you're never going to see any change, because you just keep repeating the same shitty behaviors and patterns that you've been in for decades. That is what is missing, and that is also something that you can change immediately. You can start right this moment if you wanted to. And I do everything in my power to help my students do that. When you realize that your mind is actually the mechanism, the device that you want to learn how to use, then everything gets easier, because now you are learning how to use your power. And when you actually care about the thoughts and realize that the 40 to 100K thoughts that you are thinking all day long matter, then you will see that those thoughts write a code that then will lead to success. If you change them, and if you start thinking thoughts that support whatever that success would look like for you, which is why I offer a monthly live Q&A call for my students, so that they can get answers to their questions, and so that I can help them deal with all the emotional turmoil that all of us deal with every single day, because we haven't quite learned how to work with our minds. And given that you have 16 hours awake, plus minus, depending on how you live, but if you have 16 hours a day and you spend those 16 hours in the same way, thinking in the same way that you did yesterday, then obviously that would have to create more of what you've already seen. So in some way, you gotta change that code. And if you wanna see what one of those live Q&A coaching calls might look like, then all you have to do is watch this next video where you see me in action, so to speak. And meanwhile, I send you so much love, as always.